Okay, well, this is the render that we left off with, and so coming back into Maya, what we're going to begin to do now is we're going to begin to explore how to further enhance this light, this area light that we have from previously, by adding in a few mental ray nodes into the mixture and taking out the Maya overrides, which are essentially still controlling the light in a lot of ways. For instance, the intensity and the fall off and those kinds of controls that you want with lights are right now really being controlled by Maya. So what we're going to want to do is come over here in the hypershade, down into the mental ray tab, and under lights, mental ray lights, the first thing we're going to want to do is just add in a physical light. Okay, so the way that you do that is you come back over to your area light and you scroll down into the mental ray section, and you can see where it says light shader. And we're going to click suppress all Maya shaders, and we're going to drag that in to the light shader attribute. It's as simple as that. Now we're going to go one step further, because I guess we could just take, let's snap off a render here real quick before we move on to the next portion and see if there's any difference between the two. So let's save the scene, and I'm going to snap off this render, and I'll be right back. Well, I canceled the render because I could see really quickly that we weren't getting anything, and that's really because these physical light, because especially it's called a physical light, is going to behave physically correct, which means that light is going to fall off, in a physically correct manner, which is that exponential fall off. It's n squared or whatever it is. It's the exact mathematical formula of it. But the Maya lights don't do that, and this light, it does do that. Maya lights do that under a certain degree of approximation, but they're not real physical lights. Under the Maya lights, you can see that you have this decay rate, and you can set it to this linear, quadratic, and cubic. And truthfully, none of those are true physically. Not any of those are truly physically correct, though I think that quadratic gets the closest. But regardless, this physical light is going to behave physically correct, and so there's no longer enough intensity for the light to even reach the scene. And we can control the intensity through this physical light by setting the value higher in the color section. But what I'm going to actually ultimately want to do is I'm going to control this with the MIB black body, and that's over there. So I'm going to just click that MIB black body, and I'm going to drag that onto the color section of the physical light. So now let's just graph that. Let's close this and graph that so we can see real clearly what we have. So we have an area light, and going into the area light, into the light shader attribute, is a physical light. And controlling the color and the intensity of that physical light is an MIB black body. And there's only two settings in MIB black body. One of them is temperature and one of them is intensity. So the first thing that we're going to do is look at, I could take a real quick snapshot here and just show you that there's absolutely no light going in the scene. There's zero, none. I would be venture to guess at least, because the intensity of the light is set so small. And these lights can, I'm going to just cancel that. We see that there's no light coming in. These lights can take huge, large numbers depending upon how large your scene is. And truthfully, I didn't model this scene in any kind of real correct scale. I just kind of modeled it and put it together. Usually if I'm modeling architecture or lighting architecture, I am modeling to correct real-world scale, and I can control the lights in a more predictable manner. But in this case, it's not real-world scale, so we might get large numbers. You will, even in real-world scale, get large numbers over here in this intensity. So usually the first thing that I usually do is go to 10,000, and then I see what I get. We could just come here and grab a little sliver and just do a render region real fast and see if we're getting any light in there, and if it warrants rendering a further render, or if it doesn't. And you can see we're still really not getting any light in there. So up it goes. So now I'm just going to take it to, I'm actually going to take it to 200,000. And sometimes that might not be enough, or sometimes it'll blow it out. Either way, it's just going to go up dramatically a lot to see if we have to go down or up. If we don't get anything, then we go to, sometimes I jump it quickly into the millions. So there you go. We can begin to see that we're getting some light in our scene. It's still not a whole lot, but I'm going to have to come up here, I think, and snap off a render. It'll be smarter, so I can see what's happening with some lights, because this could be the end of our cyc and the bottom of the thing. So, okay, so we're getting some light. It's not that much. So I'm going to just quickly cancel that and come back to Maya, and I'm going to actually just set this at 1,000,000. Right, that is 1,000,000. Is that not correct? Yeah, 1,000,000. Okay. Now I'm going to come here. Let's just grab that whole sliver, and I'm going to go render region. And let's see what happens. There we go. We're beginning to get the amount of light in our scene that we would like. And you can already see, I mean, at least the quality of the light itself has a little bit more richness to it in how the surfaces fall off and the gradation. It's not looking so I don't know, there was something about the other render that in the hot spots was making me believe it wasn't being lit quite correctly. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I can see here that there's a big, huge difference in the quality of it. It definitely needs to be a little bit brighter. You can see even in the quality of the shadows that we're getting. Yeah, it just, everything is looking a lot better. So what we're going to do here is we are going to now, I'm going to come back, I'm going to turn off this reflected plane because I don't think we really need it for this lesson. And I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to turn these both white for a little while. So let's just assign material, and I'm going to pump this up now to 2,000,000. And I will snap off a whole render, and then I will pause the video, and I will be right back. Okay, so now we're back, and we can see that we've got a scene. We've got some whites. It's getting a little bit blown out. We've got this slight, it's going to probably be very hard for you to pick up, but it's kind of like a slight amberish hue. Nice soft shadows, the light's falling off. I mean, there's nothing fantastic about this lighting, but it's illustrating the point pretty clearly. Right now, we're using a Lambert, Maya Lambert for shading, and I think that what I'm going to do is just to kind of keep it consistent. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to use a MI Material X. I don't need to use the one with passes in it because it doesn't matter at this point. And under presets, I'm going to come over here and just set it to matte finish. So we get a matte finish, and I'm going to make that pure white. Okay, instead of the Lambert. The reason being is that this is a physical shader, fundamentally energy conservation. So you can never get values over 1, and if they do, it'll clip. They conserve energy. I mean, that has more to do when you're getting into reflections. Like, you can never have a surface that's, 120% shading. Like, if it's the diffuse is set to 70 and the reflectivity is set to 0.5, really you're getting, 1.2, and its values over 1. And in the real world, that would be physically impossible. So these shaders have ways of dealing with that, right? So with the area light and the physical light, let's use a physical shader. Why not, right? Especially when we start getting into a few different material tests with this light. Okay, but the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to come back to the light. Okay, and I'm just going to graph that real quickly to get it into the scene. And I'm going to come back to this black body. Okay, it was a little hot, not too bad. I'm going to take it to like a 1.7 for right now. And with this color temperature, you can see it set to 6,500. This is in Kelvin, and you should all be familiar with what a color chart looks like. I don't have one handy, but there are plenty around. But basically, this is going to control the color temperature of the light. So you can actually match real-world situations. Like, for instance, let's do a common fluorescent light. It's going to be 3,200 Kelvin. It's going to be amberish. You'll see in the render. But that's a common photo color light to use out in the real world, right? A lot of photo bulbs come at 3,200 Kelvin. So let's just check out what that does to our render with all of our white pieces. And again, I'll be right back after the render's done. Let's put this in the graph so we can kind of compare the two, and I'll be back. Well, we can see one, that the scene is very, very amber, but that is actually the 3200 degrees Kelvin, the color temperature of a lot of household lights and photo lights. And like, if you imagine, if you see a lit room at night through a window, you can always see that yellow orange glow more evidently than you can when the surfaces are all, when there's multiple lights coming in and multiple light sources. But you can use this to color match. So again, a lot of it's going to be artistic choices and things that you make. This light itself can the one difference between it, for instance, in the CIE light, let's just look at that real quickly. Let's pull up the Hypershade again. Okay, so with the Hypershade open, let's just select the light and let's just graph it. And I'm just going to zoom out here a little bit so we have a little bit of room. And let me actually minimize this so we can see our settings too over here. Zoom out so we can see. And we're just going to kind of cross compare really quickly a few differences between the MIB black body and the CIE light, which is the light functions on a CIED light, and it basically functions a lot of the same manner. It's just that you have limitations. So like, for instance, if we look at the color temperature and you try to type in 1200, it bumps you, keeps you at 4000. So it's going to keep you within a range. Just try to type in 15,000. And it's going to let you do that, but it's going to never let you go down below 4,000 for some reason. I'm not 100% sure why that is. It probably has something to do with the specifications of CIE. So anyway, so let's get back to the MIB black body and let's look at these color temperature settings, because right now we've already only set it to 3200. So what I'm going to want to do is let's just go through a few of the range settings, and that's how we'll end the lesson, because that's really all you need to know about this light. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to some extreme ranges, and then we'll go to the middle ground, which is like a daylight lighting kind of setting, right? So for the first one, let's go to something like 10,000. Okay, yeah, 10,000. Okay, so there we go. So with that said, let's just come back to our camera view so that we can see where we're going to render. I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to snap off a render, and I will be back when the render is done. Okay, well, the render is done, and we can see immediately that the color temperature is completely changed in the opposite direction to a very bluish cast. The render, it's a little bright. I'd probably tone that down a little bit, which let's just go and do that really fast. Okay, so let's see. What color temperatures? I'm going to take that down to 1300 for the remainder of our renderings. And let's come back up here to the CIE light. And so you can see that the color temperature ranges, the higher the value, the bluer you're going to get. You can keep going up with this. Okay, so let's just quickly go through a few of the different settings within the color temperature range so that we can see what the differences are and what we get rendering wise. So let's go to kind of like a median value, which is 5700, and let's snap off a render there. Okay. So I'll just render this, and then I will be right back as soon as the render is done. So you can see with the setting of 5700, we're still pretty amber, but it's kind of leaning more towards a white. It's not anywhere near as amber as the lower color temperatures are. So now let's look at something like 6500 and see what happens. Okay, well, you can see that with that setting of 6500 degrees that we've crossed that threshold. So somewhere between 5700 degrees and 6500 degrees is going to be our point of threshold, where we're going to cross over from the amber world into that kind of cool lighting rather than the warm lighting.